Hi, I am Melissa, Dr. Gibson. I will be your instructor this semester in our online history of education class. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say hello, as face to face as we are in an asynchronous virtual option, and also to give you a little bit of reassurance and guidance as you start the semester. I want to say up front that seeing an asynchronous syllabus written out as units is probably a little overwhelming. I totally get that. So I just want to give you a little perspective to help you think about the course and to help you feel just a little less overwhelmed at what this might look like. When I'm designing an asynchronous course, I start actually by thinking about what a synchronous face-to-face course would look like, right? How many times are we meeting? What kind of activities would we be doing in that meeting time? And how many readings and writing assignments would you be doing in preparation for each class? So typically in a graduate class, you're going to have anywhere from 2 to 4 readings per week, right? Articles, maybe a book. Sometimes books are spread out over multiple weeks. Sometimes you're asked to read a whole book in a week, but 2 to 4 articles per week. And then you have typically around 3 hours of class time. And in that class time, in my classes at least, we do a lot of small group work, we do a lot of discussion, and we do a lot of collective meaning making. So if you look at the syllabus and you think about each unit as representing 2 weeks of face-to-face class time, you should see that in each unit, there are around 8 readings or resources, right? 2 to 4 per week. Not all of these are long. Some of them are primary documents, which are really short. Some of them are short videos. Some of them are long, but some are not. So, and remember, as I said in my email, I'm actually still pruning the later units of the course. So there are a few more readings and resources listed there, and I'm just trying to figure out which ones can be optional and which ones or are recommended for future reference and which ones are really necessary. And so I will continue to prune that reading list as we go. So if you looked at that last unit and you saw that there were more than in the earlier units, just know it's going to get shrunk down a little bit. Okay, so in terms of our reading load, it's equivalent to a face-to-face class. Then, in terms of the learning activities, if you think about in any unit, right, if a unit represents 2 weeks of a face-to-face class, those are close to 3 hours each week. Your discussions and your small group activities are the equivalent to the activities that we would be doing in those face-to-face classes, in those face-to-face sessions. And in fact, I think they will take less time. So as you look at the small group activities, for example, you will see that they're not research projects, right? They're not crazy labor intensive. I imagine that you and your small group will have some communication during the first week of the unit about how you want to get together, how you want to collaborate, what you're thinking about. And then you'll get together for about an hour, hour and a half to create whatever product it is that you're sharing with your peers. And then you'll take a little bit of time, maybe about an hour, to look at what your peers have posted and respond to it. Okay, so that's what I'm imagining for the small group activity. The discussions are something similar. You're doing your readings during the first week. So they're compacted, right? So they represent what's equivalent to an in-person course, but they're compacted in the first week, really. I mean, you can spread them out if you want, but it's going to be easier if you get them done in the first week. Your discussions are just part of that reading preparation. So rather than a D2L discussion board where you're required to write long, elaborate responses, we're using a tool called Perusall, where I have uploaded PDFs of the readings, and you can actually do your readings right in Perusall if you want. And that your annotations, what you might write in the readings to yourself as you're reading, can become your discussion. You're literally, when you go into the Perusall discussion for Unit 0, our introductory unit, you'll see I've inserted some questions. That's what a post looks like. Right? These are not, I mean, you can write long posts, but you don't have to. These can be questions, comments, connections. They can be quick, single comments and annotations. So when it's a 7, that doesn't mean you're going to write 7 pages of comments. It means 7 times somewhere in those readings, you're inserting a question, a comment. At least 2 of those are going to be you responding to peers. Right? The questions that they raise, the connections that they make. And ideally, somewhere in there, there's going to be a back and forth with a peer. But again, they're short. Think of them as the kind of conversations you would have in class, not the really long D2L discussion posts that we may be used to, right? So again, quick, not elaborate. Now, in terms of writing, every unit, again, think of it as 2 weeks. Every unit has 2 kind of writing assignments. The first one is your reading response. Oop, I didn't mean to flick you off. The first week is your reading response, okay? Many classes require these. They're often a D2L post or a written paper. I've given you more words than I think are necessary. So I've given you a range of 500 to 1,000 words, which would be 2 to 4 pages double spaced. But really, I'm thinking around 2 pages double spaced is really plenty. It's a chance for you to reflect and to show me that you read and for me to understand how you're thinking about the readings. So essentially, every other week you're doing one of those, okay? Which is equivalent to what you would get in many face-to-face classes. Then you have a culminating activity or task, which typically is writing, but not always. Almost all of these build towards your final project. So 4 out of the 6 culminating activities build towards your final project, and they ask you to apply the kind of thinking that we're doing towards your final project so that final project is a little less overwhelming. We're chunking it over the semester so that it builds up towards your final policy analysis paper, okay? So the 2 places that are going to look more traditional then are in Module 3 and Module 6, where I'm asking you for your culminating task to be a little more of a traditional paper. So that is going to take more time, for sure. Just like you would have a midterm paper or a final paper in a course, right? That is going to take more time. So you'll want to look at those, but you also see that the reading response that week is a quick Flipgrid video where you can get on and you can just record a couple thoughts about the readings that you did this week rather than writing something. Okay. I hope that allays some of your fears and anxieties, or just your thinking as you're thinking about how to juggle your courses and your load for this semester. If you find that things are impossible for you, please reach out to me. I am open to feedback and I am open to working with you. The grad classes I've taught are normally face-to-face, and so this is equivalent to that as I'm explaining, but this is the first asynchronous graduate class that I'm teaching, or fully graduate class. I've taught asynchronous, designed to be asynchronous classes that are combinations of grad students and undergrads. But I'm always open to feedback. Those of you that have worked with me before, I hope know that and can assure your classmates of that. But I'm really looking forward to working with you. I think that we have a really rich syllabus and so much to think about. I will also say that part of my classes are reading heavy, and part of why they are reading heavy is because I'm really committed to making sure that you all have a foundation in what are considered the basics in whatever our graduate topic is, in this case, the history of education, but that you are also hearing from voices that are not typically included in the canon, so that when we think about history of education, we are hearing from people of color, from women, from immigrants, from marginalized and incarcerated people. You should see all of that reflected in the syllabus. And that does take, to include as many voices as possible, makes it hard to winnow and to whittle down the syllabus. But I hope you'll see that this is equivalent, and that it's going to be a really rich learning opportunity for all of us together. So I'm really excited. I welcome you, and I can't wait to see your Flipgrid introductions next week.